Hey Goblin, you've been really practicing those war drums. I'll bring the generic Goblin noise!
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMudzda to get you 5% off anything on the site. You can also use the promo code MTGMudzda for 5% off your orders from Face to Face Games, Canada's largest Magic the Gathering store, with qualified orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey you! If you haven't signed up for the notification for my Kickstarter campaign, you should know it's live now. It features the incredible artwork of Andre Garcia, not to mention has tons of great add-ons, like dice, tokens, and a sweet two-sided coin. If you're interested in picking one up, look for the pinned comment below with the link to the Kickstarter. Today's game is another Multizone matchup, and I'm taking my Shorikai deck out for a spin. I keep 2 islands, Mindlink Mech, Mech Hanger, Foundry Inspector, Plains, and Unlicensed Hearse. Marie has built the recently released Mazzy, keeping 2 mountains, Forest, Satyr Enchanter, Utopia Sprawl, Core Spirit Dancer, and SRAM. Maxim is playing his Kitt Kanto deck, keeping Loreen the Diversion, Forest, Temple Garden, Farseek, Orzhov Advocist, Arcane Lighthouse, and Myriad Landscape. Felix is back with his Kamiz deck, keeping a Swamp, a Port Town, Plains, Nightmare in Making, Shadow Mage Infiltrator, Una's Blackguard, and Smuggler's Stash. Marie wins a die roll and starts us off. She draws, plays a forest, and casts Utopia Sprawl into the forest, naming white. Maxim plays a tap Myriad Landscape. Felix draws and plays a swamp. I just have an island for turn. Marie has a mountain, and casts a Core Spirit Dancer, passing turn. Maxim has an Exotic Orchard, and casts Farseek, passing while searching for a land. Felix plays a Port Town, and reveals a Plains from his hand. He then taps 2 for an Una's Blackguard, and passes to me. I have a Plains for turn, and cast Ethereum Sculptor. Marie plays a Plains and casts Siona. As she enters, she looks at her top 7 and reveals Squeeze Embrace to put to hand, and passes turn. Maxim has a Forest for turn, and at this point has enough for Kitt Kanto, and it makes him a citizen token as his commander enters. Felix plays the Plains that he'd revealed earlier and casts a Smuggler's Share. He goes to combat and hits Maxim for 1. I draw, play a Mech Hanger, and then cast a Foundry Inspector. With 2 cost reducers out, I'm able to cast an Unlicensed Hearth for free and pass to Marie. Marie plays a Plains and casts SRAM in her main phase. She enchants the Core Spirit Dancer with the Squeeze Embrace we'd seen earlier, drawing 2 cards as she casts it, and makes a token from Siona's trigger, which seems like pretty decent value for 2 mana. Moving to combat, Maxim responds by tapping Kitt and a citizen token to pump the core and goads her. Marie then has to swing it and decides to go with it and Siona at Felix. They both connect and she passes, with Felix drawing at the end of turn from the stash trigger. Maxim draws and plays an Arcane Lighthouse. He taps 2 mana for a Felwar Stone and then pays enough for an Orzhov Advocist. He then ships the turn, and at the end of turn, I exile the Farseek from his graveyard by tapping my Hearse. Felix has an island for turn and casts Soul Ring and then passes to me. I play an Inventor's Fair and am able to cast Shorikai for a white and a blue, and I then pass as Maxim gets a closer look at my commander. Marie plays a mountain for turn and casts Halvar, God of Battle. She moves to combat, and once more, Maxim goads the Core Spirit Dancer. She swings it, Siona, and Sram at Felix, but doesn't give the Spirit Dancer double strike because Maxim is really the big problem right now. Felix takes the hit, and Marie then passes. Maxim has an Advocate trigger on his upkeep, and Felix agrees, putting the counters on the blackguard, while Marie also decides to put some on her core Spirit Dancer. Maxim then draws, and casts a quest for renewal. He then plays a Lorien the Diversion, and passes. Felix draws, and has a Plains for turn. He casts the Shadow Mage Infiltrator that he'd had since his opener, and goes to combat. Maxim taps 2 creatures to go the blackguard and pump it, and gets to add 2 counters to his quest. This forces Felix to swing it, and he swings it at me, dealing 5. I also have to discard a card because it has a +1/+1 counter onto it, and I pitch an island. He then passes turn. At the end of turn, I exile my own island to the hearse, and use Shorikai, drawing 2 and discarding 1, and making a pilot token. I play an island for turn, and Felix says he's got an answer from Maxim's board if someone plays a second land for turn, so he'll get a treasure token. I agree to this if he won't attack me for a turn, and he promises to as long as there's not a goad, and I play out Tezzeret the Seeker. I downtick the Walker by 0 to go into my library, and put out a Razortide Ridge. I then move through combat, and my second main phase, to pass. Felix gets a treasure at the end of my turn, and we move to Marie's turn. Marie plays a Bountiful Promenade as her land for turn, and taps enough for a Bare Umbra. She enchants it onto the core, drawing 2 cards, and making another token from Siona's trigger. Marie then casts an Idyllic Tutor, and goes to find an enchantment to put to hand. She reveals an Ancestral Mask, and goes to combat. Once more, Maxim goads the core Spirit Dancer, and Marie sacrifices her combat step to keep everyone around by swinging it at Tezzeret, and then passes turn. On Maxim's upkeep, nobody takes the Advocate's trigger this time around, and he then plays a Cassin Ardenvale in his main phase after drawing. He goes to combat, and swings his team at Marie. Marie blocks Kitt Kanto and the Advocate, but still takes 4. Maxim then passes, and gets to untap his creatures on Felix's untap step. Felix untaps and draws. He then taps 5 mana using the treasure to make a black to help cast Nightmare Unmaking, and picks the mode to exile creatures with less power than cards he has in hand, which at this point is 5. Maxim responds by sacrificing his Citizen to Lorien to goad the core Spirit Dancer once more, and then sacrifices Kitt Kanto to goad the blackguard. We then exile the appropriately powered creatures, leaving a fairly large core Spirit Dancer out. He then pays 3 for Thada Adel, and ships the turn to me. At the end of turn, I exile 2 cards from Marie's graveyard by tapping my hearse. I play Command Tower for turn, and using the Mech Hanger, turns Shorikai into his vehicle creature mode. I then go to combat and swing at Maxim. Before moving to blocks though, he makes a token with Cassin Ardenvale, and blocks my commander. With nothing else, I pass turn. Marie plays a Spire Garden for turn, and then brings out her commander, Mazzy, True Sword Paladin. With Mazzy out, she taps enough for an Ancestral Mask, and enchants it onto the core Spirit Dancer, once more drawing a card. She has to swing the core from Maxim's goading unfortunately, and goes once more at Felix, who blocks with Thada Adel, but because of Trample from Mazzy, still has him dropping to 2 life after it connects. Marie then gets to untap her lands from Bare Umbra's trigger, and in her second main phase, casts a Satyr Enchanter. She then taps enough for Calix, and upticks the Walker once it's out, looking at her top 4, and revealing Ethereal Armor from the cards she looks at, putting it to hand, and bottoming the rest. Maxim untaps and draws. He plays a Mountain for turn, and taps enough to recast Kitt Kanto, who comes in with a Citizen token, and he then passes turn. Felix draws for turn, and plays an Austere Command, picking the mode to blow up enchantments and creatures with converted mana cost of 4 or higher. Maxim responds once he gains priority, with a Boros Charm to give his stuff indestructible. I respond to his response by casting Thirst for Knowledge, hoping to find a counterspell. I draw 3 and discard an artifact, but sadly can't stop it. It seems like Marie's mostly hurt by this unfortunately, but Mazzy sees the enchantments blowing up and exiles them, letting her play them until the end of her next turn. With his board wipe plan mostly foiled, Felix then passes turn. I exile Boros Charm at the end of turn by tapping my hearse. I gain 1 from the fair on my upkeep, and draw, playing a Soul Ring in my main phase. I then pass to Marie. Marie is a command tower for turn, and starts recasting her auras. She puts out a Bear Umbra, drawing 2 from the Enchantress triggers. And then once she's done, casts Winds of Wrath, blowing up all non-enchanted creatures. Going to combat, she hits Maxim for 6 with a Spirit Dancer, and gets to untap her lands again thanks to Bear Umbra. She then uses Calyx again, looking at her top 4 and revealing a Rancor to put to hand. She then recasts the Squeeze Embrace, drawing a card, and Ancestral Mask, drawing again. She puts Wild Growth onto a land, drawing a card from that as well. And then we see Arcane Signet. Maxim plays a Temple Garden, having it come in tapped, and once more casts Kitt Kanto. I respond to the commander on the stack by using Shorikai, but don't find an answer. Marie also decides to use Enlightened Tutor to go and find an enchantment to put on top. Felix untaps and draws. He casts Sun Titan, who upon entering, brings back Thada Adel from his graveyard. He then passes to me, and at the end of turn, I tap my hearse once more, exiling Marie's 2 tutors from her graveyard, and we move to my turn. I gain 1 on my upkeep, and play a Plains. I tap 6 mana for a Shimmer Dragon, while Marie reveals she's putting Destiny Spinner on top of her library. I then cast Katori, and tap it to crew up Shorikai. I declare I'll go to combat, and Maxim uses his trigger from Kitt Kanto to goad Shorikai and pump it by +2/+2. I then resolve the Katori trigger on Shorikai, giving it lifelink and vigilance. I swing it at Marie, who takes the hit for 10 commander damage, and I gain 10 life. My second main phase has nothing though, and I pass to Marie. Marie draws her Destiny Spinner and plays a Plains. She then enchants the Spirit Dancer with Emblem of the Warmind, drawing a card as she casts it. Mazzy then comes back, and Marie then casts the Destiny Spinner. Mazzy then gets enchanted with Ethereal Armor, which draws a card for Marie, and then casts Rancor, drawing again. She downticks Calyx, exiling Kitt Kanto, as long as Squeeze Embrace is out. She counts up how big her creatures are, and moving to combat, the core Spirit Dancer goes at Maxim, and Mazzy goes at me. Maxim gets taken out from the damage, while I put the pilot token in front of Mazzy, but forget she has trample. This has me taking a total of 15 commander damage, and Marie gets to untap her lands, and in her second main phase, casts Heliod's Pilgrim to tutor for another enchantment. She reveals an All That Glitters, and puts it to hand. She enchants it onto the Destiny Spinner, drawing a card as she casts it. She then plays out a Sanctum Weaver, and then once that's done, Iroas before passing turn. Felix casts Kamiz in his main phase, and goes to combat. He swings the Sun Titan at Marie, and Thada Adel at me. Kamiz triggers, giving the Sun Titan Connive and Unblockable, and Thada Adel gets Double Strike. Marie then takes 7 after Felix discards a non-land card to the Connive and puts a counter on the Sun Titan, and I take 4, with Thada Adel getting Felix 2 search triggers. He decides to grab Sculpting Steel and an Aerial Surveyor. He then casts the Steel, and as it comes in, has it become a copy of the Soul Ring. He then taps the Sculpting Steel Soul Ring for an Ornithopter of Paradise, and passes. At the end of turn, I tap 2 artifacts with a Shimmer Dragon to draw a card. I untap, gain 1 from my Inventor's Fair on my upkeep, and draw. In my main phase, I sacrifice Inventor's Fair to try and find an answer, but unfortunately the best I can do with the mana I have at this point is find and cast a Nautiloid ship, exiling Marie's graveyard as it enters. I then head to combat, using Katori to pilot Shorikai, and then giving it Vigilance and Lifelink. I swing it and the Shimmer Dragon at Marie. Marie blocks Shorikai, and I gain 8, while the dragon hits Marie for 5, and I pass turn after that. Marie untaps and draws for turn. She's got the game pretty much locked down now, and plays a tapped Jetmir's Garden, and then brings out Reva, Master Smith. This means all of her enchanted creatures will have double strike and trample, and she swings the core Spirit Dancer at Felix and Mazzy at me, winning the game and taking us both out. Game review time. So I am continuing to be impressed by Goad and also kind of terrified by how common it is becoming. In theory I like the mechanic, but as you saw it felt very much like as long as Maxim had his commander out, no one is actually going to be able to attack him. He also had that sweet piece of tech with Quest for Renewal, allowing him to untap his creatures, which meant he almost always had 2 creatures to tap on someone else's combat step to goad your biggest creature somewhere else. Smuggler's Share is the chase card I think from New Capenna Commander, and rightly so. It gets you cards, treasures, and life, and unfortunately Felix loved it so much he forgot to blow it up with his own austere command. That being said, I don't think he actually drew anything from it after the austere command, so it didn't change all that much. I was a bit disappointed that Kamiz wasn't doing more this game, but we had filmed a couple games that night, and Felix did show off Kamiz pretty well in some other ones. I still need to tweak my Shorikai deck a little bit more. It feels like sometimes all I do is draw and discard cards with Shorikai, which I understand makes for a good Reanimator commander, but I want to focus more on the vehicles. I probably need to come up with ways to make more tokens to be able to crew up vehicles, because that seemed to be the main place that I struggled with. Someone who didn't struggle at all, it seemed like, was Marie, despite the fact that she seemed to eat 3 board wipes. That core Spirit Dancer having survived since turn 2 was an impressive feat to say the least, and it was drawing her so many cards this game. I think Mazzy is a great commander for an Enchantress/Voltron based deck, and as you saw, even when it got board wiped, you were able to recast them that next turn to help build back up, which is often where the Voltron deck falls flat. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.